Hello, everybody. Welcome to Late Night Football. Welcome to our transfer roundup show. As we did yesterday, we're doing it today as well, a little bit early, but that's why I think it's been a very, very exciting day, and there's been a lot of transfer news to get through, and things will keep filtering. I think we're now at the point where, with the Euros being over, there's going to be a lot of news that's going to come filtering across. There's going to be a lot of deals that are going to be happening. So every day it's just going to bring something new, and there's going to be more and more rumors. So we'll try to get through as much as we can, and obviously, things keep changing. So by then, this is not live. So by the time I set this up, something else might have already come across. It's so difficult, but I'm actually kind of browsing through Twitter right now as well, just to make sure that there's nothing else new that I need to keep an eye on. And I'm sure that there's going to be new stuff that's going to come. So I think let's talk about let's start with the caption. Of course, the big headline for today, which is Leny Yoro. Is he going to go to Manchester United? Is he going to go to Real Madrid? Now, this afternoon, Canadian time, the rumors were hot that Leny Yoro has started discussions with Manchester United over personal terms. If you remember, Lille have already agreed a fee with Manchester United. So the club agreement is done. The transfer fee is done. It's 50 million euros plus 12 million euros in add-ons. That is what has been discussed. That is what has been confirmed. But the issue, as always, is whether Leny Yoro wants to go to Manchester United because he's waiting on Real Madrid. We talked about this yesterday as well, actually, where we said if the decision is between Real Madrid and Manchester United, players will always want to go to Real Madrid. But when you look at the economic side of it, the playing side of it, maybe Manchester United have a little bit more to offer on that side. The prestige, the trophies that will, there's no match. Real Madrid will always win trophies. Manchester United won't always win them, and they haven't for a while. They haven't really won major trophies for a long time. Real Madrid have been, consistently winning, and they'll continue to win just because of how La Liga is. So the question really is, where does he want to go? Does he want to go? And just because you go to Manchester United doesn't mean you can't go to Real Madrid later, and vice versa. But it just felt, but I think young players are sometimes impatient and they want to go right away. So I think the news that came out in the afternoon was that Leny Yoro is kind of getting, impatient. He's kind of getting annoyed with Real Madrid's slowness, and so he's now started negotiating with United. And I think Mark Goldbridge at this time said, it could be a tactic. It could be a sort of speed up tactic from the agent to kind of go, hey, listen, we're now starting negotiations with United over wages. You want him, you got to make the deal happen quickly, because otherwise we're going there, not waiting around. And what has happened now in the afternoon, suddenly it's that Real Madrid are going to make another bid to Lille. They're now going to go and submit, try to get an agreement with Lille as well. So there's things that I still think that was probably a correct assessment. I think this news that was put out that he's negotiating personal terms, I think, was just a way for Leny Yoro and for the agent to say, look, we're now getting into the next stage with United. You want us, you want my player to join. You've got to now get a move on. You can't wait till the end of the transfer window to kind of force Lille's hand. We need you to do stuff now because I want to be on the move now. So I think that's what has happened. I still feel, people are saying that Manchester United are now ahead, Real Madrid behind. I still think Real Madrid are in pole position. And the reason why they're in pole position, and things can change, by the way, I say this doesn't mean he's not going to join Manchester United, doesn't mean he's not going to join Madrid. What I mean to say is that when I say that he's in the Madrid and pole position, it's because Leny Yoro wants to join Real Madrid, right? And when you want to join when you want to join Real Madrid over Manchester United, what is going to happen is that right until the end, the door will be open. The door will be open. So he's going to negotiate with United. That's going to take a day or two. They're going to negotiate wages. They're probably going to negotiate a higher salary because he's joining there. He's really joining there for the economic package rather than for the prestige of playing for Manchester United. So he's probably going to negotiate a higher package than he otherwise would with Real Madrid. Right, so that's going to happen, and then Real Madrid will come in, and I'm sure what will happen on the back door is that the agent will be saying, "Look, we've agreed, say for example, £50,000 a week. And I'm just giving an example. That's not the fee, but I'm just saying that we've agreed a £50,000 a week package with Manchester United. If you give £45,000, we can make it happen, right? Or we can, you give us the same, we'll go to you. £50,000 a week, we'll go to you. We'll come to Madrid. That deal is open. As long as you agree the fee with Lille, we'll do the deal. So I think what is happening is, even though Manchester United might have everything ready, until that contract is signed, Real Madrid will have that door open because the player wants to join Real Madrid. And that is a dangerous situation for any negotiating club like Manchester United, because you always feel that whatever you do in the rug could be pulled right from underneath you. And so that for me is a big concern with Leny Yoro. And that kind of also sorry, throat is hurting here, but and I think that kind of leads into what happens with Matthias de Ligt, because for me, de Ligt wants to join Manchester United. Now, what is interesting here is that David Ornstein has reported that it's either Leny Yoro or Matthias de Ligt. And I find that a little bit surprising because earlier in the window, we were talking that Jared Branthwaite and Matthias de Ligt were both going to come to Manchester United. They were independent deals that they were doing. And to be fair, Manchester United need at least 2 new centre-backs, maybe even 3, but they definitely need 2 new centre-backs to join Manchester United. Now, what has changed in that sort of 3-4 week period where we were talking about getting Jared Branthwaite and Matthias de Ligt to Manchester United? Now, Jared Branthwaite is not coming to Manchester United. There's talk of a third bid possibly happening. I feel that is just tactics to kind of get maybe a lower price for Euro, or not for Euro, but maybe for de Ligt to get a lower price. I'm not sure why that news has come out that they're going to try for a third bid for Branthwaite. That third bid for Branthwaite almost is like third bid for I think it was Thiago 10 years ago, 11 years ago, when they kept putting in new bids. And actually, no, sorry, not Thiago. It was Francis Fabregas. They kept putting in new bids for Fabregas, and they kept getting rejected. And it kind of feels like that as well with Branthwaite, is that they keep putting new bids in, but they're never going to get close to the Everton figure. And so it's just pointless trying to waste time. So I think somebody has put that out for some reason that's gone out. Either United are that stupid and that incompetent that they think that third bid might actually force Everton's hand, or that Jared Branthwaite might someday wake up and say, I want to go to United, so Everton, please accept this bid. Or this is just, rumor and gossip for some other reason. Maybe the agent is trying to do something. But either way, the fact of the matter is that it was supposed to be Jared Branthwaite and Matthias de Ligt were both going to come. Jared Branthwaite is not coming as of now. They're getting Leny Yoro, perhaps. Why is the de Ligt deal dependent on the Leny Yoro deal? Well, Yoro, by the way, also, probably is the same amount that they were going to pay for Branthwaite, probably even lesser. So why are those two deals now dependent on each other when we were told that the two center back deals were not dependent on each other? So that's an interesting thing for me. Is it because of Xerxes? I don't think so. I think that was always a plan that they were going to get a striker. So it's something has changed in the last 3 weeks, and I'm not sure what has changed in the last 3 weeks that we're now getting this. From my perspective, I think United need both. They need 2 defenders, whether that's Yoro, de Ligt, whoever. They need 2 defenders. At the very least, they need two. They might even need 3 because Kambwala is going as well. Can you rely on? Because you need 5 defenders. I think after what happened last season, United need to go in with 5 defenders. They've got Johnny Evans as the 5th defender, which I think is fine. As a 5th defender, Johnny Evans is perfectly fine. You've got Lisandro Martinez, and that's 2. Then you've got Lindelof and Maguire. That's 4. So you need 1 anyway because Varane's left, right? So you need 1. But then you don't want to keep Lindelof and Maguire. You want both of them to go in an ideal world. Maybe both won't go. Maybe 1 will go. So you need 1 to replace him. Ideally, you want both Lindelof and Maguire to go. And then you bring in 2 defenders, right? But at the very, so 3 defenders in total is what I mean. But ideally, at least you need 2. You need 2 at the minimum. Ideally, you'd want 3. And right now, we're hearing that they can only do 1. So there's a bit of disconnect, and to me that is a bit concerning as far as a Manchester United fan goes, because what has changed and what has happened? Why is there this disconnect, and why does the recruitment team feel that they can get by with just one defender when last year defense was a big issue? Right now, there's some people saying Luke Shaw can play left centre back, maybe, but then you don't have any left backs because he can't play left back and left centre back in the same game. He can only play one position in a game. He can only play one position. So who's going to be a left back? Well, that would be Doue. Well, what if you need a right back because you only got Van Bissaka then? Who's going to play? Who's the backup right back? What if there's an injury? So it's all sorts of combinations that's happening. And I think right now, for me, there is a lot of concern with what is happening with the recruitment team because we're hearing a lot of this deal could happen, that deal could happen, but deals are not really happening. The Xerxes one has happened, but others are not happening. And so that is one. But we'll leave the United talk for now because there's a lot of other, well, there's actually not going to leave that because there's one outgoing as well. Mason Greenwood to Olympique Marseille now is almost certainly done. The fee was agreed quite a while ago. Personal terms have also almost been agreed. Like it's just a matter of signing. The details have been agreed in principle. So what that means is that Greenwood just has to sign the contract now and then they move on. So this deal is something that has dragged on for a while, but it looks like it's coming to an end. Lazio apparently have also pulled out of the race. I don't think they were there in it for very long. For a while, I don't think they've been in the race. So Marseille, I think, were the favorites. And I think now that deal will be closed. It's good for Greenwood. I think for him, for as long as he can, he needs to stay out of England. I think for the benefit of his own mental health, his, whatever else, whatever you may think about, what has happened. And I personally, I'm a big believer in second chances. I've said this all along. I believe in second chances. So I do believe that, the player made a mistake. He apologized for that mistake. Whether it was sincere or not is for you to decide. I cannot make. For me, I think, when a person has apologized, you give them a chance to show that you know what, you're a changed person. You give them that chance. Now, that doesn't mean that every time somebody does something bad and you apologize. The punishment has to fit the crime. And I think keeping him out of football for a year, not allowing, he missed out on his livelihood for a whole year. He had to do a lot of, he had to do a lot of work to really get back in good graces to even be able to get back into football. So he's had, well deserved. He's had his time out of football. That was well deserved. That he deserved that for what he had done. He deserved that. But now he's done. Now that's over. Now let's move on. And I think at the end of the day, for the player's career, I think when you think about it from that perspective, if he's going to get a second chance, I don't think he would have got that second chance at Manchester United. That's okay. Or actually in England, I should say. I don't think he would have got his second chance in England. I think for him, it's better that he plays. He played in Spain for a year, let him play in Marseille, France for a while. And after that, if things work out, then you see where that takes you. But I think not being in England was paramount for him, for his mental health, for him to be able to get back into football. So it's a good deal for him. It's a good deal for Manchester United business wise as well. I think they needed that money. They're going to get whatever pure profit thing that we're now calling it. So that's happening as well. So that's good for Manchester United's point of view. So hopefully that will speed up some other deals. What I believe is that the point that was being made about, and I'll finish on this, is that they said that it can either be Leny Yoro or Matthias Ligt. I feel what was meant was that right now, in this very moment, they can only do one deal, which is either Leny or Matthias, and they've chosen for now to go to through with the Leny deal because that's the one that's more highly rated. That's probably the one that makes more economic sense from a point of resale and all that stuff. So they think this is the one we want. When they can get rid of 2 or 3 more players, being that Greenwood, being that Sancho, be that Maguire, whoever they want to get rid of, once they can get rid of those players and get a bit more money in, then I think they will move for Matthias Ligt, because I think from their point with the thinking is the Ligt deal is there to be done. He wants to come to Manchester United. We want to sign him. We know what a reasonable fee is. We can negotiate with Bayern fairly quickly. So let's work on this Leny Yoro deal because that's more complicated. We can't wait to do the Leny Yoro deal because he'll go to Madrid, right? But if we can get that one over the line quickly, then when we get the money, we can then go and sign Ligt. So I think that's what it is. I honestly, and I sincerely don't believe that United are going to sign only one centre back. They need 2 centre backs, and I sincerely believe that they will sign those 2 centre backs. But I just think that at the moment they can only do one right now because of financial constraints, and they'll probably wait closer to the end of the window to get that second one done. So we'll see what happens there. But share your thoughts on that. Share your thoughts on Leny Yoro. Share your thoughts on Matthias Ligt. Do you have a preference of which defender you would want? To be honest, I don't really have a preference for either. I know some people have very strong preference for De Ligt because he wants to come to United, and I think that is a thing. I think definitely that is one thing where you do say yes, he wants to come to United. But on the other hand, De Ligt, isn't really, he's injury prone as well. So yes, he may want to come to United. Yes, he may be a good player, but if he's another Varane, United don't need that. So for me, to me, there are pros and cons to both deals. That's the way I look at it. So just get one deal over the line quickly and then get the other one over the line as quickly as possible as well. Get both. For me, get both. For me, it's not an option. It's not a choice. Get both. Which one you pick first, I think that's really doesn't matter. Both have to get done. And I think from a rational, sensible point of view, I can see why they've picked Euro as the first deal to do, and that's fine. But you got to get both across the line. You got to get 2 defenders. If it's not delayed, it's got to be somebody else. But there's got to be 2 defenders. There's talk of Jonathan Tah as well, but I think that's just I think that's just paper talk. I don't see that deal happening. I think Bayern are too advanced in that deal to try and now turn back and say we're going to sign John. We're going to leave that, forgo that deal and let Man United sign. I don't think that's happening. But speaking of Bayern, because we've talked about United enough, so we'll kind of move forward now. And talking about Bayern, there is talk about Desiree Doué. And Desiree Doué and Xavi Simons. Again, as I said, apologies if I'm pronouncing that name wrong. But Xavi Simons and Desiree Doué are the 2 players that Bayern Munich really want. And they're trying for that. And we talked about Desiree Doué yesterday, that there is a bit that's gone in for him that was rejected. They're going back in with another, but they've talked to the player. They really want him. But now PSG are interested as well. PSG want Desiree Doué. And that is the kind of deal that I see PSG doing. I thought the Osimhen deal was kind of out of character that we spoke about yesterday. The Desiree Doué deal sounds more like the ones that PSG kind of want to do. 45 million euros, I think, is what has been mentioned as the price, which is a bit high for somebody, I think, who's only 18, 19 years old. But at the same time, I think he's got a lot of potential. Apparently, he's very highly rated. So you can see nowadays, I think clubs do want to sign younger players anyway. I think the whole concept of PSR, of FFP, all these things, I think what that has done is that has kind of made the clubs go, we need young players, so we have resale value for them. If they flop or if they do well and we go to another club, we want resale value. So they try to go for younger players rather than older players. So that's why you see them paying a little bit more for these younger players, because they, in their mind, they're going, well, if he does well for us, we can keep him for 10, 15 years. And even if he does really well and somebody else wants him, we can demand a lot of money for him because he's a young player. So I think that's where the thing is. So I think 45 million euros is a lot, but I think in the market right now, that's just the rate that people are paying. And particularly when there's two big clubs that are interested in PSG and Bayern, you want to charge a little bit more of your ends anyway. So that's happening, and I'm not sure where the players should go. It's going to be an interesting one to follow. I'm not sure where he's going to end up. There's a lot of talk at the moment that PSG are probably favorites, but yeah, I can see him going to PSG because it's France. You want to play in France, it's better. But at the same time, I think Bayern is also a good option. I think company has spoken to him, so that may sway. But it's one to keep an eye on at the moment. What that also means, of course, with Xavi Simon also that they're interested in. What it could mean is that if Desiree Doué goes to PSG, then Xavi Simon goes to Bayern. That becomes easier for Xavi Simon to decide to go to Bayern Munich because, he's not going to get much game time. Then at PSG, there's another competition that he probably may not win, and he might think, I'm better off going to Bayern Munich. So he may go to Bayern Munich. He's going to go out on loan or transfer, that's for sure. That's definitely going to happen because I don't think he sees himself starting at the moment, and so he wants to play and he doesn't want to be a bench player, so he wants to go, and I think that's fine. The other option that has been mentioned is that if the Simon deal doesn't happen, or if they do, it doesn't happen, they will look to get Dani Olmo. So as I said yesterday as well, getting Dani Olmo is almost the most Bayern of things to do, but apparently he's only a backup option at this moment in time. Their top two target priorities are Doue and Simon. And it again, I think it comes back to the age factor because I think Dani Olmo is probably 25, 26 at this point. And so they probably don't see, again, his resale and things like that. They think, yeah, well, he's in his prime years. Do we want him? Do we want maybe a younger profile player who we can develop and make better, and then maybe sell on for a profit, or keep him for a very long time to be the bedrock? So Bayern are under a lot of upheaval at the moment. There's talk of Kimmich leaving, but he wants to stay and see out his contract. There's Koeman, who's probably going to leave. I do expect at least one or two more departures as well. Maybe Goretzka might leave as well. So there is going to be upheaval at Bayern for sure. A lot of long-standing players are probably going to leave, and it will be an intriguing story to follow as to who's going. And I think they will replace them. They want to replace them with younger players. That's what they want to do. I think they want to start a new cycle. And so what we are going to see is probably a lot of established players leaving, and then they place a lot of younger players coming in. That's the way that I see them going. So be tuned because there'll be a lot of Bayern news that will come in the market. Moving on from that, I think staying on PSG though, Joao Neves is now very close apparently to joining PSG. Joao Neves, has been linked to a lot of clubs. Very highly rated Benfica midfielder, but he has now been approached formally by PSG, and PSG want him. So there is talk that he might end up going there. They are getting close to an agreement with Benfica. That's what the news is coming out. Again, news is news, right? We can only react to it. I'm not sure how reliable the source is, but it is coming. And if that deal happens, now Joao Neves is very highly rated, by the way. He's very highly rated, but he's got a massive release clause, which means that not a lot of clubs can afford him or want to go for him. Otherwise, every club would be interested in him. But the problem is that release clause. Benfica don't want to sell for anything less than the release clause. And so the question is that, which club can pay it. So PSG are the clubs that can definitely pay that release clause. And so they will definitely be, then that's why they're trying to get to an agreement. They're trying to sign him. I don't think he had the best of Euros at the kind of, because we all thought that, he'll go to the Euros, he'll be a star, and suddenly, there'll be a flurry of activity. But I don't think he's had the kind of Euros that maybe he would have expected, and maybe some of his suitors expected. So therefore, I think his value has not increased to the point where clubs are kind of itching to get a hold of him and trying to sign him. So from that perspective, I think, there is an opportunity there for PSG, because if more clubs were interested, maybe there would be too much competition and maybe they wouldn't be able to sign him so easily. But because he's not had such a good Euros, I think the hype factor has cooled down a bit. Just like it happened with Diogo Costa, if you remember, for Porto. Very hyped, very rated, and then didn't have a good World Cup. And then suddenly all the offers and everything just kind of cooled down on him. He's had a good Euros though, so maybe there might be interest there. But with the same thing I think has happened with Joao Neves with the Euros now. What I will say is that if that deal does go through, then Manchester United, bringing them in again here, but Manchester United might be able to get Ugarte over the line as well, because that is the deal that Manchester United want to do. If they get Joao Neves, that means Ugarte goes further down the pecking order. Because then he's still got Vitinha as well ahead of him. So then he goes further down the pecking order. So that might make a deal more easy for them to do. And they might want the money as well. They might think, well, we're getting Joao Neves, let's get, some money in by selling Ugarte. So that could happen as well. And so that again is one to keep an eye on, how dominoes and things can impact, right, in transfer window. So I mean, that could happen. That is the thing that, from a United fan perspective, if you are a United fan, you'll be watching for that to say, If that Joao Neves still goes through, what does that mean for Ugarte? He probably he probably leaves, right? Whether on loan or whether on a transfer, he leaves, and maybe Manchester United will be able to get him. So that's one to keep an eye on as well. Coming from Christian Falk. Now, Christian Falk isn't always reliable for non-German news. So again, I would take this one with a pinch of salt. But the news is that Madrid are interested in signing Trent Alexander-Arnold. It makes sense because I think Madrid don't have, beyond Carvajal, I don't think they have any right backs. They've used Lucas Vazquez as right back. They've used Nacho as a right back. Nacho is leaving, of course, so that's out. Lucas Vazquez, of course, is also aging, so he's not got much time. I don't know if he's signed a contract extension, if he's still there. I'm not sure at the moment. Dani Carvajal, of course, is getting up there. He's probably not got a lot of time left as well. So it makes sense they're looking for a right back. Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course, has only 1 year left on his contract with Liverpool. There's been no talk of a contract extension at this point. And if Real Madrid is sniffing around, then I think Trent Alexander-Arnold will be saying, I don't want to sign a contract extension. I want to see where this deal goes. So I can believe that this is, and Madrid have been linked with Trent for quite a while. So it's not something that's come out of the blue. So I can see this deal happening in the sense of it makes sense. My only question is, would Real Madrid really want Trent Alexander-Arnold if he was? The question is, how interested are they? Is it because of his contract situation, because he's available for cheap? Are they really seeing him as a genuine option to challenge Carvajal for that right back slot? I think La Liga might suit him because he's very offensive minded. When you play for Real Madrid, you don't have to do as much defending. You can attack a little bit more. La Liga probably, isn't that defensively sound anyway in the first place. Like, it's not a defensively oriented league. It's more of a, attack oriented league. So defenders can be a little bit, they can get away a little bit with not doing much defending. Not always, but, across a 38 game season, you'd probably say they could get away with the 30 games a season, whereas in the Premier League, you probably wouldn't be able to. So I can see that deal happening. And of course, Trent, I'm sure, would want to go to Real Madrid, and play for them. So I can see that deal happening from that sense. The only question is, how eager are Real Madrid? Is it an opportunistic sort of situation where they're just looking at it because, he's available for free transfer, he's available for a cheap price this season? Or is it something that's genuine interest? So, and Falk, as I said, is not always reliable with the non-German news. So the question, of course, is, how much do you pay that? So again, it's one to keep an eye on. I wouldn't, if I was a Liverpool fan, I wouldn't be panicking just about now with this news, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on and to see how much more it develops. And from Trent's point of view, I wonder, maybe he sees that as well, that, I've done everything I can at Liverpool. Maybe it's time for a new challenge. Maybe it's time to go somewhere else. Try myself in a new league. It's possible. It's quite possible that he looks at it from that perspective. I mean, people talk about him as a generational right back and all that stuff. I don't think he's that great as a right back, to be honest. I don't. I think there are flaws to his game, which get accentuated every time he plays for Liverpool. Maybe playing for Madrid might hide them a little bit. Playing in Spain might hide them a little bit. But he's a good defender. He's a good defender who gets a lot of assists. And maybe Real Madrid looking at that as well, thinking we need an attacking right back. We need somebody who's going to create chances for our forwards and from the right back area. So maybe they look at it from that perspective and they're thinking it's a good deal to do, even if it doesn't work out and we have to sell him. We could still make a profit because he's English. We'll get him for cheap because he's only got 1 year left on his contract, and we can still sell him for a profit because English clubs will always be interested in him. So from the economics of the deal makes sense, and maybe that is what they're looking at as well when they're trying to sign him. Another one that of course has come is the fact that Serhou Guirassy has joined Dortmund from Stuttgart, top scorer, or just I think he was top scorer in the league last season. Yeah, did really well, and now of course has got his big move to Dortmund. So people talk about Bayern poaching top players. I think Dortmund do it quite often as well. They kind of go under the radar with it a little bit, but they do that as well, and they've done that here as well. They signed who was that? I forget his name now. The German striker. It's kind of escaped my mind, but they signed him last season. Now they signed Guirassy this season, so they're doing that. Doesn't always work out for them signing these experienced strikers, I think, but I think the deal was there to be done. It was not a big feelings, 80 million euros or something, 8 million euros or something, which is an absolute steal of a price. So you pay that, and to get a striker of that sort of ability and quality, it makes sense. It's a deal that makes sense. It's a deal that makes sense for Dortmund, of course, and good for Guirassy as well to play at an higher profile, for a higher profile club. But what will be intriguing is it's just how often Dortmund do these sort of deals, and nobody really talks about it. But well done to Dortmund for pulling that off. Definitely well done to them. The other one, now going on to Manchester City, that's where we'll end, of course. So yeah, just going to two more and interesting ones, of course. Ederson deal is off. That's the thing that's coming at the moment because Al Nassr only want to pay 30 million euros. Manchester City wants 60 million euros. There's a massive valuation And so Al Nassr are like, screw it, we don't want to do this deal. We're going to look for Pinto from Brazil. There's a Brazilian goalkeeper who plays in Brazil. That's who they're looking at the moment as an option. So that deal is probably off. And I get it. I get it from both sides. I think, honestly, I've been paying a lot of money for a lot of players. I think what this season, last season, I think was a lot about trying to get these big players, big names, get them on big contracts. I think this season a lot more sense has prevailed, and they're like, we're not going to spend silly money for past their prime players or even in their prime players. We're not going to spend silly money just because we want them, because that hasn't really helped us build the profile of the league in the way that we wanted to. Attendance is still down. It's not like people are suddenly interested more in playing football just because they've got Neymar and Ronaldo and all these players in playing in the league. So I think what they're doing now is they're looking at, from an economics point of view, it's like, we're not going to overpay. We're going to pay reasonable amounts for these players. And we're going to try to go that way rather than trying to, portray everyone as superstar signings. So is 30 million euros a fair price for Ederson? I think, I'm not sure of his contractual situation, but I do feel it's a bit low. I do feel it's a bit low. If you're talking Andre Onana is 50 million pounds, depending, let's say Ederson has 2 years left on his contract, I think he's definitely worth the same price, 45-50 million pounds. I think 30 million euros is too low. You could probably say 40 million because maybe, Ederson is a bit older than Onana. Maybe that's a factor, but goalkeepers can play a much longer period of time. He's not that old in goalkeeping years, so then they can play much longer anyway. So I do think they need to up their bid a little bit. But the 60 million euros is a fair price. I think that's up to you to decide. But definitely 30 million euros is too low. So they've got to go up more up than that if they want him. So good on Manchester City for rejecting that deal and not doing it. That's totally fair. I think that's totally fine. The other one, of course, is Julian Alvarez. Julian Alvarez has apparently emerged as a target for Atletico Madrid. Now, he was a target for Chelsea not a long ago. Now it's that he wants to go to Atletico Madrid because they've lost Alvaro Morata and they want to bring in a striker, so they want to bring in Alvarez. What is interesting here is that Alvarez wants to leave Manchester City. That's the headline. I can see why, because obviously, ahead of him, he's got Erling Haaland. He's never displacing Erling Haaland as the main striker as long as Erling Haaland is there. And who knows how long he will be there, because the one thing with Erling Haaland was that we all thought 2 years at City and then he'll go on to a bigger club because he's that good of a player. He'll go on to a bigger club like maybe City, Real Madrid, Barcelona, some club like PSG, maybe some club like that super club. But the fact is now we've learned he's not that good. He's a very good goal scorer. He'll probably be the finest goal scorer of his generation, the greatest goal scorer of his generation. But as a player, he's very limited. And therefore, the chance of him going to a club like Real Madrid or Barcelona are very slim because he doesn't fit that profile he doesn't fit those profiles. So he may never make that move. So then he's going to be at Manchester City for some time because obviously City are not going to sell him on the cheap. The amount that they're going to demand for him, only a few clubs can pay. And those clubs probably don't want him because of his profile. So Erling Haaland is going to be number one for a while. Obviously, when you look at the wings, you've got Phil Foden, you've got Jack Grealish. Not that all of them are going to start ahead of him, but you've got that competition of Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Jeremy Doku. De Bruyne is still around. Bernardo Silva is still around playing in that position as well. So you've got all these players. And so he's probably sees himself that I'm competing with for 3 positions, I'm competing with 7-8 players. For those 3 positions, and it's a lot of competition, and I want to keep playing. I want to play for Argentina. I want to keep improving, developing. I can't do that if I'm a bench player playing 40-50 games playing maybe 20, starting 30 times and being subbed in 20 times. I don't want to do that. I want to start 40-50 games a season. So you're probably thinking of from along those lines and thinking, I need to go to Atletico Madrid. I need to go somewhere else, and maybe Atletico Madrid is a place where I can go because it's an Argentine manager as well over there. There's a lot of South American players. Rodrigo de Paul plays there, of course, so his Argentina teammate plays there, so he probably feels some comfortable in that environment. So maybe that's why he's thinking of wanting to go there. I can see why he wants to leave City. The question, of course, is do City want him to go? Because I do think he's a better fit for Manchester City than Erling Haaland. I think he scares me more as a United fan. If I see Alvarez starting, it scares me more than Erling Haaland. Just saying something. But then the question is, how do you fit him in the team, right? Do you he's a striker, but he can play as a winger. Do you play him as a winger? Do you play him as a striker? Or do you play a 2, for example, like 2 strikers? You could try to do that. Will City be willing to change that? Probably not. Do you play, there's ways in which it can be done, and I think Alvarez is good enough to play in City's sort of the players. Sometimes they play 3-5-1-1 that they play, and he's good enough to play in that 3-5-1-1 as the one behind the one, which will be Haaland. He could do that, but then the question is how often do you play him there? It's all sorts of things. It's all sort of things that need to be that Pep will need to think about. But the question is, how much does Pep want to tweak to fit Alvarez into his plans? Or does he think, we signed him for 20 odd million, which is a steal. We can get 35, 40 for him from Atletico. Let's let him go and let's make that profit, and then, maybe sign another striker or find somebody else. So that is an option. And that's the big problem with being a backup striker. That's the big problem with being backup striker, is that you come to a club, you hope to play, but after a year, and it's always good when you have two great strikers. When you have two great strikers, it's fantastic. It's every manager's dream is that, when you're playing a one striker formation, you have two great strikers that are competing with each other. Or if you have four great strikers for two positions competing with each other, trying to play, it's great. But what happens usually is 1 or 2 years after they leave, because they realize, one person realizes he's never going to get into the side. So unless he converts himself into a winger or some other position, he's only going to play if he's out of position. Otherwise, he's not going to start games, and he's always going to be a backup, and then they want to leave. So that's always the thing. There's always a challenge, is trying to find a good second striker, a good backup striker who can actually come and replace the main player. So I sympathize with Alvarez. I sympathize with City's situation, of course, and they may not want to lose him. But at the same time, I think Alvarez wants to play. So it could happen. I think it's one to keep an eye on. I think if the reports are true, I can see that one happening. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Nonetheless, I think that's a nice little wrap for all of that is happening. I think we covered quite a few stories. A lot of these stories are still early stages. It's very hard for me to say, for me to say that Alvarez to Atletico is a great move makes no sense, just to give as an example, because it's still very early stages. We don't even know if there's been nothing. It's just a rumor that's come out. We don't even know there's been interest from Atletico. There's a bid being placed. There's a lot of things. So it's hard to, that's why I don't generally like to talk much about transfer gossip, because it's so hard to know what's true and what's not. And until things kind of get to a certain point, you can't even say if that's going to happen. And sometimes even then it doesn't happen. So it's always a little bit difficult, but at the same time, it's kind of fun to speculate and think about, oh, this might happen or that might happen, and what that might do and what. So that's the fun part. The difficult part, the tricky part, is to actually know whether a deal is actually going to happen or whether it's just rumors. And most of the times, as we learn, 99% of transfer rumors are just that. They're just rumors. So anyway, but share your thoughts. Share your thoughts on all that we've discussed. There's something that you think I missed, mention that as well. I'd be happy to discuss that in a future show. Thank you so much for watching. One more thing that I will mention is that Sarina Biegman is being considered for the England manager post. We talked about Gareth Southgate before, so do check that video out if you haven't. It's an interesting one. I don't think she should get the job. I just don't think, football is ready for a female, a top level football. I don't think it is ready for a female manager to be having that sort of responsibility. And it's just going to be it's going to be difficult. I mean, yes, you got to start somewhere. I get that, and maybe this is the place to start. But I just feel that it's just a step too much too soon for Sarina as well. And you're pretty much setting her up to fail if you do that. So I'm not sure I think that's just paper talk, to be honest. I think it's just like, yeah, they're just talking about it like, yeah, let's put it out there. And let's see what the reaction is, kind of, if we ever want to do it in the future. But I don't see that happening at the moment. I just don't. But stranger things have happened. So we'll see if that actually comes to pass. And if it does, then I'll do a reaction video for that. But anyway, smash like on this video if you enjoyed it. Share your thoughts, comments, and everything that has been discussed. Felt like a good show, and do let me know what you thought. Do subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Getting close to 450 subscribers, so help us get that mark. Sign up for that. Would really appreciate your support. Thank you so much for watching. See you again soon. Bye bye.